the Fox.
Hi, Barbara.
Okay.
Michael.
Well, guess what, folks?
Ding-a-ling.
Take the little sign off that says start recording, because if I don't have it hitting me in the face, I'm going to forget. So here we are. We are October 14th.
Whoa.
Slideshow start. Ta-da! Welcome to the Rotary Club of Sebastopol Sunrise for October 14th, 2020. And I guess our greeter didn't arrive this morning, so.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. So, Gus, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Well, would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to
The flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And a thought for the day from Darlene.
Okay, so let's see. Coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is progress. Working together is success. Henry Ford.
Thank you. I like that. Coming together, that's what this meeting is all about. And then I ran across this one, and it's, because change is one of Rotary's themes. So be the change that you wish to see in the world. And wave to your Zooming friends. We can't hug, we can't shake hands, so we can wave. And then Joe.
Yes, President Barr.
You said you had a song for us.
Yes, and those of you who weren't here when we first discussed this a little earlier, it is October, and I am actually a little behind. We would normally have done this at a early meeting in October, maybe after our Oktoberfest first Friday. We're going to roll out the barrel, the beer barrel.
All right.
Okay. So
There's some,
if you don't know the words,
wonderful
just
words. If you get a chance, Google the words and read them, but because they're classic. But we'll just do the chorus, which everybody knows, I'm sure.
Right.
You ready? Roll out the barrel. We'll have the barrel of fun. Roll out the barrel. We've got the blues on the run. Sing, boom, tararo. Ring out a song of cheer. Now's the time to roll the barrel. Cause the game's all here.
Hey.
Joe, I'm glad you knew the words.
Thanks all here.
Yeah. Well, there's some
It looked
great
like he
words
was
in
looking at the words on his computer there.
that.
So good
It's
morning,
that
Brian.
zing, boom, tararo.
So, Cyber Rotarians, I haven't seen anybody yet. Anybody see any Cyber Rotarians? But we do have, for the last time,
That's right.
Richard, Rudy, our guest. Welcome.
Thank you. It's so nice to see sane people.
Where? I haven't seen anybody. Where?
I don't know.
All over.
One of the things I learned in tax season is if you can't laugh, you are in deep doo-doo.
Amen.
So now I get to mute y'all. Mute all. Yes, you can unmute yourself, and you should. So we have a couple birthdays. Michael McLaughlin, Jeannie has birthday.
She does on Friday.
Yay. And what exciting extravaganza do you have planned?
Well, we're not entirely sure. We were thinking about maybe going up to Angels Camp or someplace like that, but I'm a little concerned about the fire potential up there, and so I'm just not sure what we're going to do. We may stay close to home and just have some dinner.
Yeah, well, are you going to cook?
Well, of course.
You gonna cook brisket or make anything good, or just gonna get takeout?
That's 3 days from now. Who knows?
Okay, and then Mark Reese has a
Tamales.
birthday. Pardon?
No tamales.
No tamales. No tamales. Do you have any left?
No.
If you want a tamale, you can always go to Mexico Lindo.
That's exactly right.
Okay, and Mark Reese has a birthday. I haven't seen Mark here. Is he here this morning?
I just arrived.
You just arrived. And what extravaganza are you going to have for your birthday?
I'm up in the air right now.
Okay. You aren't going to celebrate?
Something will happen. We just don't know exactly what it will be.
Okie dokie. Well, have fun and
Barbara,
enjoy your day.
Barbara,
Thank you.
Mark Reese's birthday comes the same day as Mary's birthday.
Well, why don't I have Mary on my
Uh,
report?
So we're going down to Carmel Valley and the kids are coming up from Pasadena.
Nice.
So hopefully it's nice. Yeah.
Okay, well, let me make them. Okay. Mary Golly is on the 18th. I'm going to make sure that DACDB is updated so that doesn't get missed again, because it did not come out on my, see, I print a report from DACDB. It gives me all these dates. So if DACDB is not up to date, then I mess up. So I got that fixed. Now, then we have anniversaries. And Terry and Sue also on Friday.
Yes.
So what are you two going to do for celebrating, and how many years?
Not sure what we're going to do. We're kind of like everyone else. It's just maybe we'll get fancy and have takeout from a fancy restaurant. And 44 years.
44 years. Okay, so my question, I'm asking everybody, when I remember, when you were married, where were you and what were you doing way back 44 years ago?
Where were we? We were getting ready to move to Las Vegas. Got married in Sacramento, and the next day flew into Las Vegas.
And what were you both doing?
I was working for the Boy Scouts, and Sue initially worked for a urologist for about 4 years. And then she went to work as a respiratory therapist at Sunrise Hospital, which was the mob-owned money laundering hospital in Las Vegas.
Nice. And then David and Susan, and I know I missed it, but your anniversary was on the 12th. And are you there,
That's right.
David? Yes, now you're unmuted.
And fortunately, I don't rely on DACDB to remind me that October 12th, Columbus Day, Indigenous Persons Day, is the day I got married. So where were we in those days? We were right in the house that we are in now. We got married in an outside sort of put together nicely wedding. And I think the actual spot is now underwater because we installed a pool later on in that very spot. So what was I doing then? Some of you remember the Middle Way. I think I was still program director of the Middle Way at that time. It was a program for serving people with developmental special needs. And it was located right here in Sebastopol.
And what was Susan doing?
Susan was teaching for the County Office of Education at that. No, she was with Santa Rosa City Schools at that point.
Okay. Great. Thank you. And I know you had a celebration. So
You bet.
we'll see that later. And Diana Curtis, we have a Rotary anniversary on October 20th. And
oh my gosh.
And it doesn't say, it says 21 years. Yes.
I'm of age now.
Yes, you are. Yeah,
21.
you joined on October 20th, 1999.
Yeah.
21 years.
Yeah, that's a
Do you
long
have-
time.
Yeah. Now, do you have a particular Rotary moment that just sort of went that?
Oh gosh, there's so many. All the debunkings and the fundraisers we did and such good company and all the great people. That's a hard one. I can't really pick one I like better than any other.
Well, and it's just been
It is fantastic here, and I'm still enjoying it, even on Zoom. Thank you, Barbara, for doing such a great job.
I try. Well, thank you. And we're sorry that it's just a Rotary anniversary, but hey, 21 years, that's pretty good. So thank you for sticking around.
All right.
So what's going on? Well, this Friday is the food bank, and this is our second one. And Michael McLaughlin, I hope we continue to do it because I feel completely safe, like Joyce said. I feel completely safe doing it. It is outdoors. It's going to get a little bit cold coming up with winter, but I think as long as it's not blowing and nasty, we ought to continue to help support the food bank by volunteering. Monday, club board meeting. We'd have just a few items to discuss, but please remember, all members are invited. The Zoom link is in the members section of the website. It's at 5:30. Come and join us. Everything else you've seen before. So with the exception of November 6th being now our November 1st Friday. So that's about it on what's coming up, unless somebody has anything else. And then we have the foundation raffle. Now, next week, Diana at our meeting is going to actually pull a ticket. So get your money into the Rotary Foundation and let Diana know so you can get your tickets. You have a bag.
Yeah, I have a bag. I found a golden one and it's full of tickets. And anyone who wants to make another donation to the Rotary Foundation, we can get a ticket in here for you so you can be part of the drawing.
Great.
But I have a beautiful golden one for Rotary.
Great. Thank you. So now, our community foundation. Michael McLaughlin, would you like to talk about what we're doing for our community foundation?
We are trying to raise money for our community foundation. There will be a letter going out to everyone explaining what the need is and how we want to accomplish it. And essentially what we want to do is contribute the money that we would have normally spent on breakfast to our community foundation, because we have no idea how long we're going to be in Zoom mode, and the ongoing needs continue that we have funded in the past. International programs continue. We're continuing to feed people. We're working with the homeless. We're doing a lot of work yet, and we need money to do that. So we're not asking for you to dig deep. We're asking you to put up what you normally would put up, and let's just move forward and do the good things that we do. So that letter will be coming out soon. You can sign up, have it done on a monthly basis, or you can contribute whatever you want. We're just making the suggestion that you contribute the $20 per week. Or you can send in a one-time check, whichever you prefer to do. So look for it, and please give it some consideration, because the needs go on.
Thank you. One of the things we will be talking about at the board meeting is the budget. When we passed the initial budget for the year, we had $0 allocated to international, $0 allocated to youth, $0. We only had the money for community service for feeding people and for the lunch program and hopefully the Christmas dinner. So our budget, you know, because we weren't able to have our fundraisers last year, our budget was basically a disaster. So we need to have funding.
Can I say something?
Yes, you may.
So we have like a $3,000 budget for Christmas dinner.
Two.
And since we're not putting it on, and I'm starting to have the homeless people contact me personally, and this is heartbreaking. So, so for me, I'm usually really busy right now being, you know, a conductor of all my captains of industry at the Christmas dinner. So I know this has to go before the board, but I would like to figure out what organization is doing something for Christmas, because and we need to help since that's part of our budget anyway.
Yep.
And I mean, I'm telling you, this is heartbreaking. I know we're saving lives by staying in with the COVID virus, but there's a lot of people out there that are really lonely right now. They're either homeless or they're all alone in awful conditions. And the thing they love the most is a meal. I mean, they tell me what meal. Oh, I get one free meal from my church a month. And is the Thanksgiving dinner going to happen? I don't know. Probably not.
No.
And these people are just so lonely, and these free meals that's their meal, you know, like they don't eat great the rest of the time. So when they get these free meals, either at their church or I don't know where else they get the free meals. But so what I would like to propose is that we figure out where these people can go, either Thanksgiving and Christmas, or if their own churches are going to help, and then we help the church financially, or I'll even help them get stuff too. I'm sure Michael would be right there with me. Yeah, we need to figure out how we can help our community at Christmas.
Kathy,
it's Marty. Have we given thought where we could have it there, but they go to the door and we hand them a meal in a plastic?
I'm all for it, Michael. I'm ready to bow down and do something. I mean, this is really sad. I mean, it's just so sad.
So I've been having discussions with the group that does the Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah.
The church is going to be a real problem this year. They don't want more than 2 people in the kitchen. They don't want assembly people in the hall. There are lots of logistical problems. I think I've got an idea that might work. I think that we should follow the model that we've been doing with the
bag lunches.
No, I think we should follow the model that we've been doing with the food pantry, and that we should go to Pacific, and we should go to Faircrest, and we should see what would they charge us for a Christmas dinner for 4. And then let's fundraise food cards for Christmas dinners that the local food stores can supply.
If we're going to do that, to me, the most important people are the homeless, because we always deliver to the homeless, Michael, right? And I have my contact for that.
Yep.
And then, I don't know, I think Nick has done this a lot. Then we have the elderly that are homebound that we deliver meals to. Like, we don't have to do 800 meals, but we could like focus on the homeless and the inbound elderly.
Okay, can we take the rest of this?
We'll do it again
discussion
another
offline?
time.
Come to the board meeting on Monday.
I'll talk with you, Michael.
Maybe community service can have a special meeting dedicated to this. But let's keep going here, please.
Sorry.
That's okay. No, this is so critical. This is why we really need to do this fundraising. you know.
Sorry, I just want to throw in a really quick idea. There are places like Oliver's and Pacific Market and some of the other supermarkets who prepare a massive amount
Right.
of Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners. Is there any way we could work with them, possibly fund part of it? I don't know, to have those meals available.
That's what
for
we're
the
talking about.
population we're
Okay.
talking
That's
about.
what I was suggesting.
Let's move on, please. Okay, we'll talk.
Judy, we'll do it with Michael.
Got it.
Yeah. So we have the week in review, and Michael, guess doing what we all will be doing and dropping it off at a real official Sonoma County ballot box. Yay! And thank you to the Center for the Arts. I'm not sure how they got picked, but it's a great site. It's easy to get to. And yeah, let's all vote, folks. If you haven't voted yet, vote. Or who was it that said vote early, vote often?
Trump.
No, it was somebody else. You know that.
John Daly.
I think it was Mayor Daley in Chicago.
Yeah, yeah,
The ground is very tilted there.
yeah. Yeah, I know. I don't know who took the picture, but it was in the middle of the day. It wasn't 5 o'clock somewhere. So then we have David and Susan, and David posted pictures on Facebook. So I, of course, had to, because I have to troll. Where do I get my information? I have to troll Facebook, or you send me information. So please send me information. And I see you have some, is that some of the award-winning Boletto Brut Rosé, David?
Yeah, they dropped it off at my house. How cool was that?
That very cool. I've had them do that too. They deliver. Well, happy anniversary to you two again. I found this nice picture of you. I like that.
Thank you.
And then Darlene, your dogs, Lucy and Ethel, they're there in the middle. But one of the things I loved about this picture is the blue sky.
Yeah, yeah, they're loving it too.
Yeah, I mean, we're
Luckily,
all.
the dog walkers are really good about taking them away from any kind of smoke.
Yeah, and I was trying to think of where on earth this is. Do you have any idea?
Not a clue.
Not a clue.
They're on more adventures than I do.
Yeah, yeah, I get that one. And then I came across this. And how many of you knew that Harlan Sanders was a long-term Rotarian?
Wait, that's Gus.
So he joined in 1919. He was in 3 different Rotary clubs, including founding one.
I think Bruce was there, wasn't he?
Well, I think maybe he was Bruce's sponsor. But yeah, and you can see the Rotary lapel pin in this picture. But yep, he's a long-term Rotarian. And one of the comments that I saw with this picture was, no wonder we have so many chicken lunches. Okay, so here we are. Weekly announcements. So we have Michael Cook. Do you want to give me a real quick, or actually not too quick, we're doing okay on time now, nominating committee time?
Yes. Well, the nominating committee has launched its activities to populate the board for David's year. And we've sent out a survey for anybody who would like to self-nominate or identify someone else they think would make a great board member that year. We're going to meet tomorrow at 5. So if you have some ideas, please submit them right away. I think the link was sent out last night again. So please give us your input, and we will assemble a group to help run the club, and you'll have a chance to vote on them in December, and we'll take it from there.
Great, thank you. Remember, the board is one of the best places for you to voice your opinion, and we want your opinions. So then we have Happy Bucks. Does anybody have any Happy Bucks? No? Ah,
I have happy bucks.
okay.
Jimmy's done fighting the fires on a strike team up north, the Zog fire, and he's back home with his little family, and my heart is resting easier today.
Super. Thank
Yep.
you. We are
Yep.
thrilled that he's able to do that, and we're more thrilled that he's back home.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I have happy bucks, which I
Okay.
mentioned earlier, that I was able to book my instant COVID test the day before going to Hawaii. So hopefully I won't have to do the 14-day COVID thing. I'm waiting to schedule my big test on the Friday before, and then the instant one at the airport. So I'm happy.
Good. And you're going to be gone a whole month.
Pretty close.
Will you have your laptop with you so you can still attend meetings, or are you going to do
No.
makeups while you're there?
Yeah, it's not always it's a vacation, but I still work. So yes, I will have my laptop.
Okie dokie. Anybody else?
But I have a question. To donate my happy bucks, could I
I'm not
click the
sure I'm
donate now
logged in
button on the website? Does that go to our club foundation?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna pay my happy bucks by clicking that button on the website. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'll pay some happy bucks. In fact, for every person who responds to the leadership interest survey, I'll pay 5 happy bucks.
Okay, folks, you got the link
So,
last night. Let's.
We got 36
expand.
people on.
Woohoo! Okay, anybody else? Well, I have some happy bucks. I have been the repository, because we have, the cottage, of boxes of miscellaneous, what I call family crapola, that came from my mother and from her mother. I found the Annalee High School 1938 yearbook, which was the year my mother went to Annalee. And I found, let me get it open here, the Annalee Annual from 1912, which was the year my grandmother graduated from Annalee, and she was the editor of the yearbook. So it's a complete hoot. They have all the things of, let me get here. They did the will. They did the thing of characteristics. Let me get, where'd she go? Here we are. I think you can see the picture. That's my grandmother, Maud Barlow. They have another table in here that has characteristics and stuff. And what is a real hoot is for one of the characteristics from my grandmother was lecturing. And trust me, it was appropriate when she was a senior in high school, and it was inappropriate until the day she died. So I'm happy about that. I've already given a mass happy buck, but these will be going to the Sonoma County, the West County Library. I don't know if they have the 1912, but they're more than welcome to have these old yearbooks. It's been a bit of a hoot finding all these pictures and stuff of people that you didn't know when younger. So is there anybody else that has anything happy?
Barbara, are there any captions in that yearbook, like where people wrote any interesting comments?
No, not in this one. Now in my mother's, it was all like, it's been fun knowing you, the usual generic.
Have a nice summer.
Right, best
Okay.
wishes. Best of luck to a swell girl. And I even looked through, so let me just.
So Barbara, while you're on the Annalee topic, I think the hearings or the discussion starts tonight on the consolidation of the school districts. So, for example, the possibility of the 2 schools coming together and moving to Forestville and opening the Annalee site for a nice community center or something like that.
So, yeah.
Well, are you sure it shouldn't be the other way around and that Annalee should be? I mean,
Just trying to stir it up so people go and talk about it. Yeah, I mean, it could go either way or neither.
Well, Annalee has the campus. I realize El Molino has the Taj Mahal library, and Annalee had the same library since many people were kids there. But I mean, the bus.
Oh, you're right. You're right, Marty. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just
okay.
Good words, Brian. Very good.
Is this a Zoom meeting?
Yes, it's Zoom. Everything is Zoom. So, without further ado, we have a special treat because our program today is Nick Randall.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm stopping sharing. So Nick will be.
Well, I have an introduction for Nick.
Fabulous.
Okay, so, and this particular program is part of our task force series, and I think you're going to find it fascinating. Nick's interest in housing policy began when he first moved to Hayward to work on community social action projects in 1971. He joined the National Committee on Discrimination in Housing and started attending local land use hearings to understand how public decisions were made. In 1976, at the age of 27, he became the youngest ever elected to Hayward City Council and served as the city's representative to the California League of Cities, focusing on zoning and land use policy. In 1985, Nick joined the Eden Housing Board of Directors, where he continues to serve today, having just completed 4 years as chairperson. Eden was founded as a back-of-the-napkin nonprofit in 1968, and over 52 years has built or acquired a portfolio of 10,000 affordable service-supported homes for 20,000 low-income Californians. Eden's new strategic plan calls for doubling that impact over the next 10 years. So it's a pleasure to have our friend and fellow member Nick address us today. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Michael. I'm having some difficulty getting my screen sharing going. Barbara, did you release yet?
Yeah, I released. Oops.
Not exactly sure how to.
So I just clicked on.
Try again. We just turned on your ability to share.
There we go. Okay.
Okay.
There it is.
All right. Now, this is not a happy story. In fact, it is shameful. But I tell it in the hope that in better understanding the truth of our history, we will be more powerfully motivated to act for change. I grew up in Pasadena as a child of white privilege, an all-white neighborhood, an all-white church, an all-white elementary and junior high school. Pasadena had a lot of Black people in the 50s, but they lived somewhere else. Then in high school, I suddenly became a minority. John Muir High School was 30% white, 30% Black, 30% Latino, 10% Asian. I learned quickly how to get along with everyone. I started to think about the hows and whys of segregated neighborhoods. Most 1960s adults and textbooks talked about de facto segregation, explaining that races lived separately because of private choices, because they, quote, felt more comfortable that way. It wasn't until I got out on my own that I started learning about de jure segregation, segregation by law or public policy. How could this be? This is the United States of America, isn't it? Our founding documents, starting with the Declaration, says that all men are created equal, and our Constitution has a Bill of Rights that intentionally is designed to protect minorities by restricting popular majorities. The Fifth Amendment guarantees due process and equal protection under the law. That's pretty clear, isn't it? Our country was founded and maintained in its early years through compromise. The Missouri Compromise of 1820 admitted Maine as a free state and Missouri as a slave state to maintain the balance in the Senate. The Compromise of 1850 admitted California as a free state and allowed all other new territories to choose slavery or not for themselves. The exchange was the fugitive slave law, which is an onerous piece of our history you might want to read about. The Dred Scott decision in 1857 started a decline in the willingness to compromise. The Supreme Court and Justice Roger Taney decided that African Americans were actually not real citizens under the Constitution, and that Congress lacked the power to ban slavery, and that the Fifth Amendment really protected slave owner rights because slaves were property. The Civil War ended compromise. Secession of the War, 1861, the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863 freed slaves. And then immediately after the war, there were 3 post-Civil War constitutional amendments that abolished slavery, made citizenship and equal protection for all born in the United States, and gave the right to African American men to vote. In Reconstruction, there was an attempt to expand civil rights. The Civil Rights Acts of 1866 outlawed discrimination in housing, for example, but it was vetoed by President Johnson at the time on the basis of states' rights, and Congress fortunately overrode that veto. And then the Civil Rights Act of 1875 strengthened federal enforcement of the 14th Amendment. But the Supreme Court came back a few years later and struck it down, saying that the federal government has the power to regulate states, not individual behavior. Housing integration advanced naturally, despite that, in many northern cities as freed slaves moved north in search of jobs and better circumstances. In the early 20th century, the segregationists started to push back seriously. There were lots of local segregation laws passed by cities and local jurisdictions throughout the country. Previously integrated neighborhoods were actually forced through eviction and intimidation to resegregate. There was a resurgence of overt public racism, examples being the 1921 Tulsa race massacre, which is so infamously remembered recently. And that was the era of the erection of all of the monuments and statues of Confederate soldiers and leaders. The federal government finally got involved in housing during World War I. They decided that they would build housing for defense workers that was nearer to their jobs. The government actually built 83 projects around the country that supported 170,000 workers, whites only. After the war, home ownership in the suburbs was being promoted by the federal government as capitalistic. It was driven by the fear of post-war communism in the United States, and they wanted to show that Americans were capitalists. An unfortunate byproduct of this movement to the suburbs by whites was economic segregation. Whites could afford to move out of the cities, but blacks couldn't afford it, so they stayed in their apartments. During World War II, there was more federal housing to support defense industries. In the Bay Area, Richmond had a large federal project to support workers at the Kaiser shipyards. And at Hunters Point in San Francisco, the Naval Shipyard, a large project was built by the Navy. The Housing Authority of San Francisco wanted integrated housing, but the Navy said no. Integration would interrupt or conflict with and interfere with ship repair. Compromise was that San Francisco Housing Authority built housing for Black people in Western Addition. In 1933, in the New Deal, the Federal Housing Administration was created. It was a program to accelerate home building and buying by making mortgages less risky than they had been before, and actually more affordable for middle class. typical mortgage terms had been a 50% down payment, a 5-year term, and a non-amortizing loan. Borrowers paid interest only, and at the end of the term, either paid off the balance and then they had to go find another loan. The FHA was created to insure mortgages so that banks could ease standard mortgage terms. With insurance, bank mortgage terms were extended from 15 to 25 years, with amortization of principal included to help build ownership and family wealth. To limit risk, however, the FHA required property appraisals. FHA appraisal guidelines stated explicitly that loan applications by Black buyers were not to be approved. Amazing, isn't it? Nor for white buyers in neighborhoods with Blacks, nor even near neighborhoods with Blacks. The FHA appraisers created color-coded maps of where to approve and not to approve loans. Redlining was invented. The explicit presumption underlying redlining was that Black or integrated neighborhoods were inherently riskier, less stable, and more likely to lose value based on race by itself. Never has been documented evidence to support this claim. Racist FHA appraisal guidelines language was maintained until 1952, and some local offices actually persisted into the 1980s. Banks and insurance company lenders followed these same discriminatory terms without reproach or hindrance by state or federal regulators. Examples in California were in the LA County area, large suburban developments like Lakewood, Westchester, Panorama City were built strictly for whites. And in Daly City, the Westlake Village was an FHA finance whites only suburban development. After the Second World War, we had the GI Bill from the Veterans Administration and GI loans to go out and buy homes. By 1950, 50% of all home loans nationwide were GI loans. The VA followed the FHA lending guidelines, denying GI loans to Black veterans. The net effect of VA and FHA policy was to keep Blacks renting in cities while whites were buying in the suburbs. African-American families were denied the benefits of equity building and home appreciation. Generations later, there has been a huge compounded impact, not only on average Black family wealth, but also equal educational attainment, equal job opportunities, equal access to healthcare. Restrictive property covenants came into the Bay Area in the 1940s and 50s, prohibiting future sales of homes to anyone but whites. The strategy was for permanently maintaining segregation. Racial restrictions were legally enforceable because they were private contracts. Cities and counties were complicit by going along with this practice. Examples in the East Bay, David Bohannon, one of the largest developers in the East Bay in the boom years, the 40s and 50s, built 5,000 FHA insured all white homes in Richmond, San Lorenzo, and Milpitas. On the peninsula in Portola Valley, there was some of you are familiar with Wallace Stegner, the author. Wallace Stegner got together a co-op to buy land and build 400 homes in Portola Valley. Of the 150 co-op members, only 3 were Black. Yet FHA refused to insure their loan. The Stegner co-op actually lost a protracted legal fight in this regard and then sold out to a developer who built the deed-restricted, all-white Ladera neighborhood that exists today. Contract sales. Blacks who were denied FHA-supported mortgages turned to contract sales. Their terms were onerous, similar to the pre-FHA large down payments, above market interest rates, short non-amortizing terms, and the result was high defaults and foreclosure rates. Blockbusting is a term that we've heard about, but not many people understood how it works. It was a private predatory tactic for profiting from racial fears. The first home in a white neighborhood sold to a black family would trigger real estate agents combing through the neighborhood, spreading a white panic of falling home values, buying up those homes at depressed prices, and then turning around and immediately marketing aggressively to black urban dwellers at high prices. A great example of this was in 1954 in East Palo Alto, an all-white community where one home was sold to a black family, and immediately this process of blockbusting started. One particular agent actually sold 60 East Palo Alto homes to San Francisco black families in 3 months. Racialized zoning and land use continues even to today. Slum clearance, freeway routing, new urban parks, intentionally targeted minority and integrated neighborhoods. A great example is the Santa Monica Freeway in Los Angeles, which meanders around for the purpose of clearing a great many undesirable, quote unquote, neighborhoods. Discriminatory property tax assessments is also a legacy of the mid-century. It may even continue today. I'm not sure about the studies today. But documented systematic higher assessments as a percent of market value in black neighborhoods than in white neighborhoods. I'll be happy to explain more about how that works, but it's well documented. And over time, it diminished black wealth. Market-driven prices inflated the prices in black neighborhoods because with home selection limited to segregated neighborhoods, black market prices were artificially high. If you don't have a great selection to choose from, there's a lot of bidding that raises the prices. The IRS actually refused to act on racially motivated tax exemption violations. Organizations like churches and hospitals and clubs that had requirements for non-discrimination in order to have nonprofit status violated it again and again, and the IRS turned the other way. All this adds up to a complete regulatory failure to end or even minimize racism in housing. The Federal Reserve, the Comptroller of the Currency, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the Office of Thrift Supervision, the Federal Housing Authority, Veterans Administration, Internal Revenue Service. At the state level, the California Insurance Commission, the California Department of Real Estate and the Attorney General, and city and county governments throughout the state through their planning, zoning, the assessor function, district attorneys, all avoided their responsibility to help end racism. They're all complicit, whether intentionally or ignorantly, in enabling and allowing housing discrimination to shape our nation, state, and region, the very definition of de jure segregation. There's the legal response in the 20th century to discriminatory practices. I'll just highlight a couple of things. The 1917 Buchanan decision challenged a racial zoning law in Louisville, Kentucky, which gave the right to whites to refuse to sell to blacks in their neighborhoods. The Supreme Court struck this racial zoning law down, but importantly, they made their decision only on the basis of contract rights, the right to sell to whomever one wanted, not on the basis of racial bias. And for decades thereafter, suburbs around the country ignored the Buchanan decision and its intent by implementing economic zoning, allowing cities to approve zoning for only higher priced single family dwellings, effectively excluding lower income minorities from moving in. Implicit bias. A quote from a local official at the time, "This matter goes beyond written law. It's in the interest of racial happiness." Cities continued ignoring Buchanan until the 1968 Fair Housing Act. Another important decision was Shelley versus Kramer, where the Supreme Court ruled that the restrictive covenants violated the 14th Amendment. Still, FHA resisted Shelley administratively. While explicit racial language in deeds was outlawed, the intent to discriminate could persist, now justified as, quote, the key to lowering FHA's risk of property value decline. FHA's discriminatory policies continued until a 1962 executive order by President Kennedy prohibiting the use of federal funds to support racial discrimination in housing. Many of you may remember the Rumford Act, a very famous legal dance in the 1960s. The 1963 California legislature banned discrimination in both rental and sale housing under what they call the Rumford Act. And in 64, there was a ballot measure sponsored by the California Real Estate Association that overturned the Rumford Act through the passing of an initiative. It gave the right to property owners to discriminate on racial grounds. 1966, the Supreme Court of California overturned 14 as unconstitutional, and it was upheld by the Supreme Court. In the 21st century, the two examples that I picked out were a subprime mortgage meltdown that we're all familiar with. It was basically the creation of toxic loans with attractive short-term teaser rates, which ballooned, causing an avalanche of defaults and foreclosures. It crashed the entire economy. And in the Bay Area, the epicenter of this was in East Contra Costa County. Essentially, it was reverse redlining, where subprime mortgages were intentionally marketed to the Black community, primarily through going to Black churches in Oakland and Richmond and saying this was their way out. They could have a cheap and easy way to get out of the city and get out to the suburbs. Buyers bought in Pittsburgh and Antioch and Brentwood, and then they went bust when those teaser rates came up. There's a continuation of racially motivated zoning. And I don't have time to talk about the false planning choices and the Doherty Valley fight. And I'd be happy to explain the RHNA allocations, the Regional Housing Needs Analysis applications, and how cities, even today, ignore and violate their fair share jurisdictional allocation for new housing. The ending of housing discrimination, I want to touch on very quickly. Housing discrimination is very tough to change. It's tougher than voting rights or hiring discrimination or seating on buses or access to hotels and restaurants. Ending housing segregation is a multi-generational challenge. Studies show that parental income status is most often replicated in the next generation. Reaching a higher rung on the ladder is the exception. Even though we like to talk about the Horatio Alger stories, it's hard to do better relative to everyone else compared to where your parents stood economically. It took too long to end job discrimination and wages, put wages on a par with whites for Blacks. It didn't happen until suburban home prices had already jumped. The tax code favors homeowners through mortgage interest deductions, and Blacks are disproportionately renters. Government assisted housing programs such as Section 8 and the low-income housing tax credit program tend to concentrate low-income people in low-income neighborhoods. It's harder for developers to build in high-income areas because there's so much pushback. So that they build in places that don't make a fuss. Not so Eden Housing, and I'd be happy to talk more about that too. The last item is the wealth of white middle-class housing value is bequeathed to their kids. Most Blacks don't have this because of the mid-20th century legal discrimination. The net impact of this today is that the median white family income is $60,000 and the median Black family income is pegged at $37,000. Median white family wealth, however, assets minus liabilities, today is $134,000, but the Black family wealth is $11,000, just 8%. So you can see what an enormous impact housing discrimination has on the Black community overall. I want to summarize with a quote from Richard Rothstein, the author of a very good book called The Color of Law. By failing to recognize that we now live with a severe, enduring effects of de jure segregation, we avoid confronting our constitutional obligation to reverse it. If I am right that we continue to have de jure segregation, then desegregation is not just a desirable policy. It is a constitutional as well as a moral obligation that we are required to fulfill. Let bygones be bygones is not a legitimate approach if we wish to call ourselves a constitutional democracy.
Wow.
So I'm happy to answer any questions I can in whatever time we have left.
Thank you, Nick. Questions?
Hey, Nick, when I was a little girl, me and my grandpa, I was just teeny in the 60s, and we'd go to Hunter's Point and we'd bring food to them. And I just remember how scary it all looked to me. That's all.
Yeah. No, growing up in white areas and being confronted with the reality of Black neighborhoods and Black areas or minority areas can be a shock.
I wasn't raised in a white area. I was raised in the Excelsior in San Francisco.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, in a really nice home, you know? Yeah.
Which was a white district. It was all Italian. I grew up.
No, it was Irish.
Next area over.
Yeah, no, Excelsior.
I went to middle school at James Denman, and we had a lot of Bayview students that were in there, and it was the differences between the whites and the Blacks was stunning.
In my neighborhood, no.
Excuse me, Kathleen. Nick, I have a question for you. All this is centered around Blacks, which is absolutely stunning, and it's a great presentation, much appreciated. In this county, there's a lot of Latinas, Latinx folks. I can't imagine that population or others haven't been affected by these same kinds of things, but not to the same degree. Is that your understanding as well?
It's an interesting question. Clearly, there is discrimination against any minority group, any place in the country, to varying degrees. The Latin population, I have no doubt, has similar characteristics. I did not spend any time, unfortunately, researching the housing discrimination for Latinos. But I can tell you that in the work that I've done with Eden Housing, a disproportionate share of our residents are Latin low-income people. And it varies a lot by community, and in some places why they're the majority, and in other places they are discriminated against and actually prevented from having long-term residence there. But the laws, there has been progress in the second half of the 20th century, serious progress. But it still continues, and it affects any minority population.
Nick, you mentioned David. You mentioned David Bohannon. Just a long forgotten fact. So David developed the Hillsdale Shopping Center in San Mateo. And when BART was conceptually developed, was going to ring the bay, and David Bohannon was the force and the money behind preventing that from going through San Mateo County, because the stated fact that I heard anyway was he didn't want people getting on the train and going to San Francisco to shop, and not shop at his mall. So that was a move that today would cost us untold billions of dollars, trillions of dollars to try and move that into the county. So his practices of controlling society lived long past the housing that he did back in his earlier days. This is very good, Nick.
Yeah, thank you, Nick.
It was excellent.
And I'm sure if anybody has more questions and stuff for Nick, you know, we all know his email address and we have his phone number. It's all in your member directory. So now I'll go back to sharing my screen, because we have lucky number 13 for the wonderful ticket. Now, who do we
Oh,
have?
lucky number 13 is our friend Louis.
Louis. Louis. I will scratch this and let you know if you win anything. Last week it was Lori and it was a bust. Must be the dollar tickets. So Wayne, do we have a Wade Clean joke of the day from you?
We do. And first, I'd like to give a shout out to Nick. When they, and it's ongoing, been talking about closing Laguna, Nick met with a number of us and gave us some very important insights on how to deal with that type of situation. At any rate, thanks a lot, Nick. We really appreciate it. So I've got a couple of things here. One's for Joe. Hey, Joe, what do you call a sleepwalking nun?
I don't know. Sounds like trouble to me.
A Roman Catholic.
Oh.
What's that?
Did you hear about the ice cream truck that crashed? The driver blamed it on Rocky Road.
Oh.
And the last one, yeah, I'm looking for the booze. So thanks for teaching me the meaning of plethora. It means a lot.
That gets a groan.
Well, that's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Good. Well, thank you. And Joe, take it away. And don't forget, board meeting on Monday. Everybody can attend. Joe.
Here we go. Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then. Happy trails to you till we meet again.
Edie says goodbye. Thank you all for coming and see you all next week. Where am I? Where am I? There we go. Whoops.
Kathy Rogers.
There we go.
Gone.
Here we go. Stop recording. Okay, here we are.